According to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, there are approximately 90,000 missing persons in the United States at any given time. With the advancement of modern detective work and advanced scientific methods, such as genealogy testing, the vast majority of missing person cases end up being solved today. Even so, sometimes investigators just aren't able to provide enough conclusive evidence to put the pieces together on some of these cases, and they go unsolved. There have been some devastating, very suspicious missing persons cases in recent times that definitely fall into this category. Throughout history, though, all around the world, certain missing person cases have left investigators and families struggling to find answers. When there is little evidence to no evidence and no eyewitnesses, missing persons cases tragically end up being closed and unsolved. Come with us as we walk through some of the most puzzling and tragic missing persons cases throughout history all around the globe. Today we're going to look at 5 kidnapping victims that lived to tell their stories. We see it on the news every day. Missing children, some found in hours, others found dead, and some never to return. When a child is kidnapped, law enforcement has about 48 hours to find the missing child before the odds of finding the child alive dramatically decrease. However, what happens to these children after the 48-hour mark if they are not killed by their abductors? We'll take you through the 5 most harrowing cases of child abduction. But that's not all. These children live to tell. The thing each of these children has in common is the man-made hell they all lived in, forced upon them by their creepy captors. Number 5. Elizabeth Schoff. In 2006, North Carolina teen Elizabeth Schoff was abducted by Vincent Filia. Filia posed as a police officer, telling the young girl she was arrested. Brandished in his fake police gear, he placed her in handcuffs. Soon, Schoff's nightmare would begin, as she was led into the nearby woods by the man she thought was a police officer. Unbeknownst to Schoff, her abductor had actually dug a shallow bunker in preparation for the abduction. It's unclear to investigators if Filia had specifically planned to kidnap Schoff, or if she was simply a victim of convenience. However, once the pair got to Filia's bunker, he chained her up by the neck and assaulted her several times a day for the next 10 days. Schoff, when she was initially being led into the woods, had left her shoes nearby in hopes that they would lead to her discovery. She had also left strands of hair. However, she would finally be rescued when her abductor fell asleep and she sent a text to her mother from Filia's cell phone. Number 4. Shayla Growin, kidnapped by the killer who murdered her family. On May 16, 2005, 3 members of the Growin family were found bludgeoned to death in their Idaho home. However, immediately investigators noticed that 2 of the children that lived in the home were missing, 8-year-old Shayla and 9-year-old Dylan. The 3 bodies in the home were the children's mother Brenda, their stepfather Mark McKenzie, and 13-year-old Slade. Immediately an Amber Alert was issued in the hope of finding the missing children. However, it wasn't until July that Shayla was discovered. She was in the company of a man named Joseph E. Duncan III, and not in the company of her brother Dylan. The Denny's employees alerted the police, and Duncan was apprehended. Shortly after his arrest, the remains of Dylan were found. Shayla reported that over the course of her 2-month abduction, Duncan had assaulted her and Dylan repeatedly, before killing Dylan, often telling them about how he bludgeoned to death the rest of their family. Number 3. Sabrina Dardeen, kidnapped by the monster of Belgium. In 1996, Belgian schoolgirl Sabrina Dardeen was abducted at the age of 12 while riding her bike to school by Marc Dutroux. He would take her back to his home and chain her up in his basement for an astonishing 74 days. Unknown to Sabrina, Dutroux was a serial killer and rapist who was already responsible for the kidnapping and killings of other young girls. He was known as the Monster of Belgium. One of Dutroux's victims even died of starvation while being chained in his basement after he was imprisoned for car theft. Sabrina was finally rescued after she had reportedly asked for a companion while being chained up in the basement, prompting him to kidnap yet another young girl. However, this time the monster's plates were recognized and he was arrested in relation to the kidnappings. Sabrina reported that he often called himself her savior, constantly reminding her that the boss wanted to kill her. This led many to believe that Dutroux was part of a secret pedophile ring. Number 2. Anne Slooty leaves notes in abandoned houses to lead to her rescue. 17-year-old Anne Slooty had spent a day at Hilltop Mall in her hometown of Kearney when she was abducted while walking to her car. She was pulled into a Suburban by Anthony Stephen Wright and beaten over the head until she lost consciousness. On April 6, 2001, Wright chained Slooty up and duct taped her mouth, all while assaulting her repeatedly on the road trip from hell that would eventually lead them to Montana. Once in Montana, Wright broke into several cabins looking for a place to house his new victim. In a stroke of genius, Slooty left notes behind to alert people of her capture, even successfully calling her mother after telling Wright she was calling a friend. Finally, Slooty managed to call 911 and lead them to her location, where her abductor and the police would engage in a 2-day standoff before Slooty's safe return. Number 1. Shawn Hornbeck. He was rescued when his abductors kidnapped another young boy. 11-year-old Shawn Hornbeck would leave his home in 2002 for a bike ride, unaware that a predator was watching him. Michael J. Devlin followed the boy and abducted him once the time was right. Devlin would ultimately have the boy for 4 whole years, even making him take on the alias Shawn Devlin. The boy reported that in the first month of his captivity, he was tied to a futon with duct tape over his mouth, rarely even leaving that spot. The boy, assaulted several times a day by Devlin, often being the subject of Devlin's twisted photo shoots and home movies. 4 years after Shawn's abduction, Devlin kidnapped 13-year-old Ben Ownby. However, Ownby's neighbor was able to relay a description of the abductor's car to police, which was eventually led to the capture of Michael J. Devlin. When police raided Devlin's apartment looking for Ben Ownby, to their horror they had stumbled upon another boy in captivity. That boy was Shawn Hornbeck. So there we have it. 5 children that were abducted and later rescued. I did not read the last 5 as these were famous cases that were all over the news for many, many months. I'm sure most of you have already heard of them all, so I did not read through them. I do apologize if I messed up any type of names or anything like that, but thanks for listening and have yourself a great day.